What's up, guys? This is the Gospel According to Mark with a C. He is I, and I am he. Just taking some time to tell you exactly what's on my mind. Thank you for joining me once again, my friends. Hope all is well with you. And guys, I want to do this video because I've noticed something on Twitter for the last few days. I've noticed that hashtag recast T'Challa has been trending, and T'Challa and Black Panther. And I think that it's great that people are still having this conversation years later. I mean, I was one of the first, if not the first person who objected to it when Kevin Feige made the announcement that they would not be recasting T'Challa after the tragic, untimely demise of Chadwick Boseman. Now, since then, there's been a lot of arguing going on, and this is no different. And unfortunately, it's predominantly black people who come in and push back the most against the idea of recasting T'Challa. I mean, it's an emotional thing. It's like, nobody can pick up this role except Chadwick Boseman. We should retire the character out of respect to Chadwick Boseman. And I've always felt like, no, the way to honor and respect Chadwick Boseman is by continuing his work, which I believe any man would want after his demise. He doesn't want all of the hard work and passion and blood, sweat, and tears that he put into this character to die with him. He wants to gift this onto the world, but I've made that point many times over the years. But like I said, you get many people who come in and they're very disrespectful, very nasty people about it, who want to misunderstand and somehow act like it's self-hating to want to continue the story of T'Challa Black Panther. Now, I want to share this article with you guys because it might give you a better perspective on how other people might feel about this. When you're through dumping on me and other people who want to recast T'Challa, I just want you to consider this, all right? Now, I saw this article in the it's theconversation.com, theconversation.com, all right? And the headline goes, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, and the Problem with Hollywood, an African Perspective. Now, the author of this article is one Jean-Marie Villejohn, and she is from the University of South Australia. Okay, we're talking about Australia. And you see the thumbnail. She looks like she's white to me, so it's very interesting to hear this perspective here. It says an African perspective, but she's coming from the University of South Australia. Okay, maybe she's from Africa. I don't know. But it says here, okay, even though the Black Panther films didn't represent Africans on their own complex terms, they're still a major cultural phenomenon. They bring issues of racial representation into the spotlight for Hollywood's still largely white audiences. They do so through the use of black talent, both in front of and behind the camera. Now, from the very beginning, she's letting you know that the Black Panther films did not represent Africans, okay? So I don't know if there's any of you who still believe that Wakanda is an actual place out there, but let's start with that realization right now. Wakanda is a fictional African nation. It's not real, okay? So questioning one's blackness based upon the way that they receive these films is idiotic. My words. Okay, let's get back to her words. Okay. The first film was a phenomenal box office success, with over half of its sales coming from the US market. The sequel, although not quite as successful, was most successful in global markets. It's my view that Hollywood's investment in these films is driven by a narrow Western definition of spectacle. US audiences marvel at the visual spectacle that entertains and sells. This has the effect of distancing them from the actual content of what they're viewing, which is Africa and diversity. Okay, so I want you guys to keep in mind where she's going with this. She says that basically American audiences, and for the sake of the point that I'm going to try to make here, and I think it's going to become more apparent as I go on, I'm going to say that American audiences or the US market, you can use that interchangeably with the black audience, okay? Because she's making the distinction that Wakanda and Black Panther, fake Africa, like actual Africa, the continent, is real Africa, okay? Fake, real, okay? So the way we're receiving it and perceiving it here might be flawed because we have a limited view of what Africa really is. All right, now it says here, It is not so much because of the films themselves, but because of how they've been received by black Hollywood audiences who understand spectacle in a very particular way. So films like Black Panther have in some ways been counterproductive. They've been counterproductive. They've made Hollywood audiences, black Hollywood audiences, I'm saying, believe that enough has been done about diversity. Think about that. Watching Black Panther makes a lot of you believe that enough has been done about diversity. The 2019 Hollywood Diversity Report singles out Black Panther as a good example of how the power of diverse images has convinced a significant number of black American film spectators, that would be 42%, that enough has been done about diversity in Hollywood. Is that true? Do you guys believe that enough has been done? I think you do, and I'll prove it in a minute. So it's making matters worse instead of helping to increase diversity and ultimately decolonize the U.S. mainstream imagination. Decolonize. Negro, you have been colonized. Do you understand? If you're identifying with Black Panther and you're taking pride in this to the point where you can't see how it actually can be used to, I guess, relate to and be a metaphor for your real life, then and you're just being entertained by it, empty entertainment, then you've been colonized because all you're seeing is the spectacle. This suggests that Hollywood spectators are lulled by such films and their spectacle. I just said that, damn it. They feel there's further reason to find out, or they don't feel there's further reason to find out any more about Africa and African filmmaking or audiences. This means Hollywood audiences are not invested in a more nuanced understanding of the kind of spectacle we see from Nollywood audiences in Nigeria, for example. This not only limits the understanding of diversity, but also limits the way that films about such topics are made. Now, what can Hollywood learn from how the films have been received in Africa? While the costumes of Black Panther draw from various authentic African cultures, this is just an appropriation of some of the most popular visual aspects of some African cultures, such as lip plates and neck rings. In the sequel, critics point out that the average, presumably Black American viewer won't know that the language being spoken in the film is Xhosa, a South African language, or that some of the garments are made with Ghanaian kente cloth and designs. Since Africa is a continent of over 50 countries that are diverse culturally and geographically, this borrowing could suggest that their cultural markers are shared and interchangeable. Real empowerment only comes about with more direct engagement with African political and social issues and less emphasis on profit. Okay, so Black American audiences, you are guilty of appropriating a culture that is not yours, which is actually something that I was talking about on the last video when we were talking about Denzel Washington playing Hannibal, and you came into my comment section. I think you need to learn more about history, my brother. These people, it's more than just skin color. Do you understand? It's about tradition and culture, which is not yours. You have a very specific culture. You have a very specific experience here in this country. And your inability, most of you, your inability to be able to realize that these images that we have here in the American Hollywood industry can be used to make or break us. It's what's limiting us in the way that we raise our children, in the way that we set our goals, in the way that we can see ourselves. All right? You talk about you just want to see yourself, and that's it. That's the only thing you ask for. But what they're saying here is that these movies can be used to understand more about African culture, which is not you. In case you haven't been paying attention, they just took your ass out of the conversation. Forget about the fake Africans. Forget about the fake Black people. All right, bring it back to the motherland, bring it back to Africa and understand our social conditions. Now, with all due respect, I would say that Black Panther, when Black Panther was conceived of back in the mid 60s, perhaps by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, they were gifting this onto the American Black experience, not the African experience. All right, but what they're talking about, the prospect that they're making is appropriating this story that was made for Black Americans and taking it to use it to understand more of the social conditions of Africans, like true Africans. You understand what I'm saying? So they just took you out of the conversation because you don't know what to do with Black Panther. You don't deserve it. Yes, despite these inaccurate and inauthentic displays of Africa in Nigeria, Wakanda Forever performed better than it did in Hollywood, the Hollywood domestic market, relatively speaking. It became the biggest grossing film ever at the Nigerian box office, the first film to earn 1 billion naira. This is because Nollywood audiences have a more nuanced reading of spectacle and how politics and entertainment come together than Black Hollywood audiences do. Ha ha! Ow! Smack! Oops, upside your head. I said oops upside your head. So what they're saying once again is that they understand that these movies can have a deeper societal, social significance than what we, the ignorant Black audiences, are capable of perceiving. Okay? Could they be right? I'll answer this in a moment. Nollywood has developed its own conventions around cinematic spectacle, which Hollywood largely neglects. According to these conventions, the audience engages with socio-cultural and socio-economic issues in a way that exceeds merely visual displays. So stop clapping. All right, as my man Raging Rhino would say, like some happy seals. Stop clapping because you see yourself. Stop clapping because you see something that makes you feel good. Black girl magic. What is it actually saying about the reality of who you are or who you could be? But I'll get into that in a minute. All right, so the Nollywood blockbuster includes both visual spectacle and a reflection of the lived conditions and social issues that Nigerian people face. Some academics argue that for African audiences, Afro superheroes are not just visual spectacles, but are also embedded in political and social issues. They offer ways of understanding the world today. This explains why, in African criticism, Wakanda has become a potential resource for imaginative transformation rather than merely escapism. This may explain why, despite its unrealistic portrayal of Africans, the Nigerian in film has been popular. In Nigeria, the film has been popular. It has been interpreted through the sophisticated lens of Nollywood spectacle. Wakanda Forever tackles political issues, even though it does so in a limited way. For Hollywood audiences, the spectacle stops deeper engagement with politics. In Nollywood, this engagement with politics is something people are comfortable with and want to make more of. They use this to build knowledge about African futurism and engage in political knowledge building. Okay, they are killing us right now, and it might be going over your head, but see, the whole hashtag recast T'Challa is basically steeped in the idea that you killed a character that has such rich history, such room to grow. Let me show you guys something. You see this right here. All right. This is a book that I picked up not too long ago. All right. You see it's very thick. These are stories of the Black Panther. And he's got so much rich history, so many stories that we're not going to get to hear. And I know some of you are thinking to yourselves, well, we have T'Challa Jr. They set it up at the end. We're going to get that. But let me just read something else to you real quick, guys, so I can wrap this up for you to think about, okay? This is part of the foreword, all right, to this, all right? Now, as you can see, you know, it's illustrated and everything. Part of the foreword here, it says, and I want you to think about this. The unrelenting physical traits that T'Challa faces are a crucial part of his story. In Graham's illustration, the Black Panther can scarcely make it through a single issue without his costume being torn to shreds by everything from wolves to cactus thorns to the armies of the undead. Scholars, okay, not just me, scholars such as Rob Lendrum and Anna Papard make the case that while most comic book superheroes draw meaning from the body in crisis, the Black Panther's race and gender invest the graphic depictions of his suffering with added significance. Race and gender, his gender invest the graphic depictions of his suffering with added significance. When he strikes back as a Black male hero with animalistic panther-like qualities, he runs the risk of being narrowly defined as a super savage. Readers must decide if spectacles like the crocodile attack double down on the stereotypes of hyper-masculine blackness or draw our attention instead to the humanity beneath the tattered remains of his clothing. The Wakandan king's own willfulness must also be taken into account, since as Papar points out, Black Panther is rarely passive in his suffering. In the vast majority of his spectacles of bondage, the narration and the ways in which Graham's often intricate line work dramatically contorts, stretches, and enlarges the Panther's muscles emphasize his active resistance. Okay, so basically what they're talking about is Black Panther's male blackness is essential to his character. All right, this is T'Challa and the challenges that he has coming across to the reader as a human being. Okay, this was very important, and this is something that is significant to all of you who say, well, you're going to get that with his child. No, this character is unique because he was raised by his father. You might not understand it, but a fatherless child is significantly different from a child who was raised by his father. That is a different characteristic, a whole different character. Okay? You don't want to admit it, but I've said many times, being raised without your father, T'Challa Jr., the risk is there. The risk is increased that he will drop out of school. The risk is increased that he will cause an unwanted pregnancy, that he will engage or be a slave to addiction, whether it's alcoholism or whether it's drug addiction. The risk of him going to jail is increased. This is something undeniably that increases when a child, a son, a daughter, is absent of a father. Okay, so you're talking about a completely different character T'Challa Jr. would be from T'Challa. Okay, so the point that we're trying to make for you hard-headed knotheads out there is that you did a disservice to the character. All right, stop being so over emotional about the absence or the tragic death of Chadwick Boseman and understand. I believe that Chadwick Boseman would have understood this. Right? That's another thing. The breakdown that you guys are having, what they were referring to there, is what motivates a black man. A fundamental misunderstanding that many of you are having is that it means a lot to us, the few of us that actually get to contribute something to larger society, not just for black people, but for everyone involved, which is the reason why you have this person from the University of Australia who's actually talking about this. People are talking about this. Meanwhile, we stay on this basic level. It's a good movie. That's all that matters to me. We refuse to see ourselves past our condition. And so we shape our ideals based on where we are instead of where we could be. And now we have the eyes of Wakanda, the wonderful world of Wakanda, Wakanda forever without its king. Because we're used to seeing female-headed households. We're used to being a matriarchy to the point where you'll call me a coon just because I'm trying to say that we should recapture our place at the head of our families. All right? That's a bad word for some reason. We should be there to raise our sons and daughters. We should give them that visual. But we don't do that. We continue to want to see ourselves in the projects. Like I said on the last video, good times. 4 generations still in the projects. Like I was saying with Director X, Robin Hood reimagined has to be a black girl in the projects who's promiscuous. And I, for some reason, am unreasonable by saying we can show ourselves doing something better. But because we don't, we have an article like this that's saying that you guys don't know what to do with this. Take it back to Africa. Never mind you guys, because clearly black people don't deserve Black Panther. Black people in America, black people in general that are outside of the African continent and tradition don't even know what to do with this. You don't deserve T'Challa. All right, guys. That's all I got to say about this. You can get in the comment section. You can let me know how you feel. As always, you can like, you can share, you can subscribe. Thank you guys for all of your support in 2023. We're just going to go harder in 2024. I'm going to make more time to do this, guys. So I thank you for everyone who has supported me with your super thanks, with your kind words. I've tried my best to read all of your comments. And we look forward to rocking even harder, guys. See you on the next one. This is The Gospel According to Mark with a C. Rock on.